Welcome to Community Voices with your host, Terrence Lachey. This radio roundtable features community, business, and religious leaders that discuss current events and topics that impact our urban community. If you would like to be a guest or if you have a suggested topic, contact the station today at 616-259-7342. Now, into the program.
Greetings, welcome back. This is Terrence Lachey, and you're listening to and seeing another edition of Community Voices here on 91.9 FM, The People's Choice. I've got in the studio a dynamic icon in the community, somebody who's really serving and doing well to help not only perpetuate the mission of feeding people, but also ministry through marketplace and business, and that is none other than Rodney Savage. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you, my friend.
I'm glad that you are here. We've been talking a little bit about this conversation, so now it's finally happening. And it's just that. So tune in and maybe even tell somebody that we're talking to Rodney Savage. He is currently serving in a capacity that I think is an extension of who he is as a minister. You may know him, in the community for some of the work that he does in the faith community. But he's the Director of Engagement, Equity, and Inclusion at the Kids Food Basket.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is a mouthful because engagement, equity, and inclusion, that's really three jobs.
Thank you.
That was created, I guess, into one. Most recently, it's become more popular. I think it was just right at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, right at the beginning of COVID, many nonprofits realize that they're doing great work but oftentimes struggle to get to the families and the children that they're serving. Mm-hmm. They have connections. They're doing collaborations with grassroots organizations.
Sure.
But still, when I talk to nonprofits, I often ask, have you listened to the families? And most of them have not connected with the families. So, of course, in this engagement, equity, inclusion space, I was brought on board to really connect the nonprofit organization to the faces, to the children, to the families that we're serving.
Well, knowing you for years, I think that is a great fit, not just personality type, but also your personal passion.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the personal passion that you have to meet the needs of people. But it's happening now through Kids Food Basket, West Michigan Kids Food Basket, a regional nonprofit organization that provides food to young people. Tell us a little bit about that organization. Feel free to expand on that.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. So Kids Food Basket, we are celebrating 20 years as an organization in Kent County, 10 years in Muskegon, and I think 7 years in Ottawa and Allegan County. So our mission is to nourish children to reach their full potential. Oftentimes children, under-resourced families, they eat breakfast at school, they eat lunch at school, but oftentimes there's food insecurity when they get home in the afternoons and the evenings for many different reasons. Mm-hmm. And so our flagship program at Kids Food Basket is we give every child a sack supper in a bag that's decorated with love, and they get to take that home. It's their individual sack supper for them to take home after school. So it's healthy. We decided we're not just going to put anything in the sack supper, even though when you deal with childhood hunger, when you deal with food insecurity, oftentimes there's a desire to just make sure that children have something to eat. But at Kids Food Basket, we are committed to the under-resourced children should have the same opportunity to eat healthy, nourishing food that their brains and bodies need to show up as their best self. So not just giving them anything, but really focusing on healthy fruit and vegetables and those items that oftentimes they don't have access to.
Wow. For those who might just be tuning in or maybe just listening and focusing because of this dynamic, rumbling radio voice that you've got, this is Rodney Savage that I'm talking to, and he is the Director of Engagement, Equity, and Inclusion at the West Michigan Kids Food Basket, or Kids Basket.
Food Basket.
Food Basket. So the word food is there because operatively that's the focus, making sure that the food gap, the food insufficiency, the food disparities are met.
It is huge. Right now in West Michigan, over 30,000 children suffer with childhood hunger, with food insecurity. Statewide, there are 552,000 children that struggle with food insecurity.
Let's focus on that term, food insecurity, because when I grew up in Detroit and we just didn't have any food, Focus Hope was the organization that we would go to once a month. You'd show a card and you'd be able to shop inside of this huge warehouse with no name brand generic items. Like there was this big black and white box of powdered milk or a huge chunk of cheese, government cheese, or a can of thick peanut butter. I mean, and then there were times when you could get a can of meat, pork
Right.
or beef.
Right.
And these were all generic USDA foods that were distributed into urban communities under Focus Hope. So
Yes.
tell us the similarities of how Kids Food Basket meets a need, but there's a whole lot of dignity associated with this now.
Yes,
There's a whole
yes.
different thing.
Thank you. That's so true. There's that human-centered design focus now with dealing with the under-resourced, and so we're not just. I forgot it was that spam. Remember, you get that spam. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm hungry, but I'm not even.
It wasn't
sure
even
if I
called
want to
spam.
eat this thing for real. So-
It was something like spam. It was spam like.
Oh, okay,
It was
okay.
Spanish.
right. And so with Kids Food Basket, it's an amazing story. If I can just back up real quick to tell how Kids Food Basket came about. Well, one day there, 20 years ago, a teacher at one of our first schools that we serviced, she saw a little girl leaving school, and this little second grader was going through the garbage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, going through the garbage. And of course, as a teacher, you stop that. You're like, stop, no, don't do that. And she looked up almost with tears in her eyes and said, hey, I'm just trying to get food for my brother and sister when we get home.
Man.
And so from there, a call was made to Mary Kay Hood, who had a food organization downtown Grand Rapids. And from there, Kids Food Basket began. But most folks did not understand that there was a great need there was food insecurity in Western Michigan, in Muskegon.
The reason it's hard to
County.
believe is
It's-
because you see so much excess, but we also see the expression of community wealth.
Yes.
And I want to slow down and talk about it because people say, well, we don't need food in West Michigan because we're all doing well. Well, not everybody's doing well.
Thank
and
you.
the fact that food insecurity is the focus. What does it mean to be insecure? Not just void of food, but
Right.
there's some other things associated with food insecurity.
Yeah, just food insecurity is when there's not enough. Sometimes there's food on the table, there's food in the cabinets, but oftentimes, for instance, when I was growing up, I would always watch, and I never understood this, that my mother would never eat until we were done eating.
Making sure that there was enough for
making
your
sure
children.
that there's enough for your children. And with inflation and COVID and what we're dealing with right now, high inflation, gas prices are up. Families are single parent mothers or single parent fathers, or families even together have to decide, how do we scale? How do we make sure that we can pay our bills, that we can keep a roof over our children's head? How do we make sure that they have what they need when they're going to school as far as school supplies? How can we do this and still put food on the table?
Sure,
Especially healthy, nourishing food. So we're trying to meet that need. We're trying to remove that barrier right there and really help families, because like you said, oftentimes it's not that there is no food there, it's just food insecure.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we'll send home a healthy fruit, a vegetable, a protein, a dairy product, and a snack coming right off of our 10 acres chemical-free
I was going to say,
farm.
let's talk
Right. I know we're moving
about
fast.
the farm. I got a chance to visit.
Yes.
And you took me on a tour. Not only is it a wonderful structure, in fact, our church used to be located right down the street, and I remember passing that farm for years, and I think it was an apple orchard originally.
Right. It was, right.
And,
Exactly.
and now where you're located is this massive space that has been transformed into a hands-on learning opportunity,
Yes.
as well as the producers and distribution of food through the West Michigan Kids Food Basket. That whole ecosystem is spectacular there, and it's a great opportunity not only to teach
Yes.
and learn, but also to produce. You got volunteer opportunities. Tell us a little bit about what the West Michigan Kids Food Basket located right on Leonard Street. Is that the location?
Right on Leonard, right off Fuller, Leonard and Fuller, that area there. Exactly. So we moved into that new building 2019, right before COVID hit. But we had a plan that, again, you can give a man a fish, he'll
You
eat
feed
for a
him for a
day.
day, right.
You can teach a man to fish, and he'll eat for a lifetime.
Lifetime.
And so as our flagship program, of course, is meeting an immediate need of childhood hunger, of giving them sack supper, healthy, nourishing food to take home Monday through Friday. We also understood that we have the opportunity, and it will be irresponsible if we did not then educate and teach, and so they can then be self-sustainable
Sure.
in their own homes. And so we started our ground up lab that we teach children how to grow their own healthy, nourishing food. I mean, we give them the seeds, the dirt. They can take it home. We bring them on the farm and allow them to get their hands dirty. And it's just amazing. When you see their eyes light up, one child told me, I don't want this carrot because it's got dirt on it. Not realizing that they all have dirt on them.
They grow in the dirt.
Just that awareness, opening their eyes. So when you give children access to healthy, nourishing food, but then teach them how to grow their own healthy, nourishing food, that's where the magic happens. That's where transformation happens. And so we have a 10-acre farm and right here in Kent County. We also just purchased another 10-acre farm in Ottawa and Allegan County. Just signed the paperwork. Expansion. So we're going to do the same thing in Ottawa and Allegan County and then transition and create some urban farming in Muskegon Heights. And so we want to continue to expand.
And that's your hometown.
That's my hometown. So I'm very passionate. We bring the children of Muskegon Heights over here. Muskegon Heights is a food desert. So in Muskegon Heights, there's not a supermarket. There's not a place where you can buy a fruit or a vegetable. It's really a food desert. So I'm very passionate about getting Muskegon Heights, my community, to come over to the farm, but not just come over to our farm. Now we have to duplicate something there.
To where it becomes that community's farm.
Exactly.
I love that approach. There's an ecosystem that I think is in place here that meets both physical needs, nutritional, emotional need, because now there's a sense of pride and involvement where the people of the community can come and volunteer, or the children can learn.
Empowerment piece, yes.
Empowerment. And then there's also, the economic piece, meeting a need that economically challenges some people to buy fresh foods and groceries. There's food deserts all over, even in large, thriving metropolises, big cities. There's food deserts because access to food and access to fresh, healthy choices. I know the YMCA does some stuff.
They do, yep, exactly.
Talk a little bit about the contrasting difference between Kids Food Basket and what the YMCA Healthy Choice or whatever
it's Healthy Choice, and some of our food from our farm goes to Healthy Choice, so we collaborate with them in what they're doing. Our focus was really doing the research. Children are going to school. That's the best place to meet them and to get food and to get things home to the family. So our motto was really meeting children at the school, dropping off the sack suppers to children at the school. Currently, we're serving about 9,600 children in Western Michigan, Monday through Friday, healthy, nourishing
9,600
food.
children a week.
9,600 children a week.
And that's just the children. That's not including the impact you're making on the families at home.
That's not including our weekend food programs. That's not including where we're dropping off food in many other places to food programs already in Kent County and in different counties, because a lot of the food from our farm is harvested when the children are not in school.
Sure.
And so we make sure we have to get the food to food clubs in Muskegon and Kent County, in Ottawa and Allegan County. And so their motto at the Y is a beautiful motto. They're meeting a need and filling a gap as well. But our gap was really focused on making sure that every single child has something to take home, that at the end of the day, children are not going to bed hungry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's meeting the spiritual need too when you think about it.
Yes.
And we have to turn there. I mean, it is a Christian station, right?
Right.
So let's just talk about how this
it.
ties into your personal life mission, because you serve in ministry, you and your wife, Lady Siobhan, for years in meeting the needs of people on a spiritual level.
Feeding them spiritually.
And so now we're connecting both the natural and the spiritual. Feel free to talk a little bit about that. I know that you're representing Kids Food Basket, but you're a man of God.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, yes, we're celebrating, real quick, just a shameless plug, man.
Go for it.
We're celebrating Great Lakes Kingdom Ministry, our 18-year anniversary
18 years.
in Labor Day weekend this year. 18. I don't know where the time.
Congratulations, man.
So 18 years of really plowing, of really serving in Muskegon County. And actually, I mean, we've served.
Actually, worldwide.
I've
been to the Man Zone conferences.
Actually, worldwide.
I've been to Man Zone, and his people all over the world has been blessed by what you all have done.
Thank you so much. But it's our heart to serve. And Siobhan and I realized that whatever we did, it had to be connected to a mission of helping people in some capacity. Of course, when you start a church, there are always going to be, we initially started with a food shelter, a clothing shelter, backpack giveaways. So always trying to figure out how do you meet the need and get outside the four walls of the church. And so the beautiful, because I struggled in the beginning. COVID changed so much for churches, and it's like, man, no one's showing up, and we're going online, and we're still releasing the word and ministering to them in that capacity. But how do we touch them, and how do we continue to touch and continue to meet the need? And so when the opportunity opened up for Kids Food Basket, that was a continuation of our desire to meet the need and help families.
Sure.
And food is such the great equalizer.
That's the common bond.
That's the common bond. Everyone needs
Let's
food.
pause for just a minute. He's going to do some station identification, and we're going to just pick it up in just a second.
Yet for an appointed time. But at the end it shall speak and not lie. I guess what we're trying to say tonight, that if the Lord said it, you can count on it, and he'll do just what he said. Come on, Elgin, like Mass Bach, say, write the vision.
Habakkuk 2:2-3 said, write the vision and make it plain upon table, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. In the beginning, the river city was without sound. It was void and had no voice. Then the Lord answered the prayers of his people and fulfilled his promise and gave them power. 91.9 FM, the People's Choice. Heard on the FM dial and online via the internet. You can listen live on your computer, your tablet, or your mobile device. Power 91.9 FM seeks to empower people and transform lives to edify Jesus Christ. We exist because we desire his people to seek ye the kingdom for direction, power, and influence to enjoy the life our Savior promised. This is our vision. Our primary focus has been funding to improve the signal. We shared with you how improvements can be made by purchasing a new antenna and transmitter system. Our goal is to raise $40,000. And we are moving towards that goal. In the heart of the River City, we plan to build a full-service community media center, complete with radio broadcast facility, a multimedia studio, computer lab, and classroom. Students will have the opportunity to learn radio, multimedia broadcasting, film, and web design. Our vision will impact not only the lives of young people, but the surrounding communities as well. Join us as we watch our vision manifest itself into reality.
Oh, yes. Now to confirm that goes in. So. Yes, it is. And he'll do just what he said. I know he will tonight. I believe I got a witness in there.
As we're talking about this, something that comes to mind specifically is the connectedness between poverty, food, urban cities. There's specific zip codes, I'm sure, that are impacted more than others. But share a little bit about how Kids Food Basket of West Michigan addresses the issues of racial disparities.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a great question. We do acknowledge in all of our writing, when I first came on board with Kids Food Basket, one of my very first assignments was to create our equity and belonging statement. It was very important that we get something in writing and get something that we could all, every single staff person could take ownership of. And that's really what we pushed. As I created and as we drafted it, we had a task force. It was about 6 of us. But before we passed that on, we presented this to all staff to understand who we are and what we're doing. Because I think that's very important, that we create a language and a framework around what we're doing and understand the intersectionality of hunger, of poverty, and of racial disparities. And so Kids Food Basket has some amazing staff, some amazing people working there, but many from areas where there was no food insecurity. And so really having an understanding of what some families are experiencing today, or even historic or systemic causes of poverty, because truly hunger is a poverty problem. If you're wealthy, you don't have a hunger problem.
Right.
So hunger is tied to poverty, and poverty in many situations for under-resourced groups is tied to racism, of land being stole, of Jim Crow laws, of not being able to own. And so Kids Food Basket, we acknowledge those things. We acknowledge that fact. And so most of the time, or I shouldn't say most of the time, we look at going into a new school, or the schools that we serve, they have to have either a 70 to 100% free to reduce lunch, because we want to make sure that we're serving the kids that need to be served. In other words, we do understand that we wish that we could give every single child a sack supper with healthy, nourishing food. That's our desire, but we don't have the capacity, the resources, the human capacity to do that. So in order to prioritize, we prioritize schools that have 70 to 100% free to reduce lunch, which happens
to be people of the racial disparity groups.
Exactly.
Would be Black as well as Latino and immigrant students. Or children. And this is interesting. Your life calling, your quest, your mission, which I'm sure you and your lovely wife have sat down and talked about. This ties in together. Off the air, we were discussing a little bit about how, as ministers and pastors, our commission is to go out there into the world. And we were somehow trapped inside of churches doing that. We were thinking, we were. Go reach the world in a church, building with people in steeples. But COVID taught us something. What has COVID taught you as it relates to your mission as a minister of the gospel, and now your professional career as a director, in a thriving program? What's the connection between those two, and how has COVID played a pivotal role in that?
Well, COVID played a pivotal role because we could no longer gather. And so once we could not gather, of course, we created, thankful to technology, ways to continue to get the word out. But we realized that we were no longer able to touch, we were no longer able to reach people. And so that allowed us to reassess our strategy, reassess our vision, reassess what we were doing, because oftentimes you don't know something is broke when it's still working.
Exactly.
And it was broke. It could have been done better. It could have been. I love continuous improvement, and oftentimes we stop with the continuous improvement and we just continue to do what we've been doing. Yeah. But COVID allowed us to take to hit the pause button, hit the reset button, and then look at better ways or more effective ways of doing things. For instance, when COVID hit, we still had our food, our food pantry. So I remember we would go buy stuff, and then we would get it on social media. And my wife and I and a few other staff would go up to the church, and man, we'll wait for people to come. We'll wait for people to get food, and we'll wait for people to get food. And people would come here and there. And so I think one week we served about 30 families, which was great for, again, a nonprofit organization that's trying to reach the community. But God opened this door to now I'm in a place where we're serving, again, 9,600 children.
Which means that ministry has expanded.
Exactly. Yeah. It has expanded. God has scaled his ministry, and we're still making an impact. But we had to look at a different platform and a different way of doing, and be open to a different way of doing God's work.
Somehow, brother, I believe that was God's original intention.
Yes.
When Jesus said the words, make friends with mammon, I don't think he meant just like money and and just don't get caught up in it. I think he meant build networks, create community that holds shareholders responsible in big picture, in an ecosystem of sorts. And I keep using that term somehow. This is a great example, because while Kids Food Basket is not a religious organization, it's absolutely the benevolence in the hearts of both the volunteers, directors, staff. Talk a little bit about the volunteer opportunities. I want to bring my executive leadership staff to volunteer for one day.
That would be amazing. And Kids Food Basket is an amazing place. We have probably 400 volunteers come through there a week in different, in all 4 counties in all 3 locations. But there are opportunities, of course. Kids Food Basket has across the board about 46, 48 staff feeding 9,600 kids. That would be impossible for us to do, because many of them are, of course, accounting and all those other things that an organization needs to actually to run. But there are opportunities to come in and pack the sack suppers. There are opportunities to prep the sack suppers. Oftentimes we get meat or get things from Gordon's or from Myers or from Feeding America that has to be opened up and put in an individual serving for a child. And so we're also cutting up meat, and we're making sandwiches. We're putting 2 or 3 maybe crackers or something in a bag, or 10 crackers. So we got to open up the bag of crackers and separate.
So it's handling.
Right, exactly.
I do want to say it's an immaculate facility. I got a chance to tour it. It's clean.
Oh yeah,
it's immaculately laid out, and the system, the volunteer system, creates such a synergy. I think it's a great team building opportunity for many ministries.
Yes.
I'm putting in a shameless plug for the volunteers, because the first thing that I picked up was, man, our ministers need to see this is ministry.
Yes.
And I was just curious, can we get them out in the fields?
Yes, I know. I love it. So not only inside for packing and prepping, but also out on the farm, because we're planting, we're harvesting, we're doing a lot of work out on the farm as well. So, and it's amazing, because I'll show up for work here in Kent County, and there'll be a school bus, 30 second graders getting off the bus. There'll be DTE Energy or Arby's or some organization, coming in to volunteer to pack sack suppers, and I'll have a group of 30 that are already on the farm, because they've been on the farm. They start on the farm early at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
But it's such a community of people coming together to address food insecurity and childhood hunger in our community. So I would love, one of my roles is to make sure that we diversify our volunteer base. And so I would like to do that. Also inviting our pastors to, show up with their staff, with their congregation. It is. A lot of organization uses it as trust building, professional development days. And,
and the facility is set up just for that. For those who might just be tuning in or might be wondering what we're talking about, excuse me, Rodney Savage is the director of engagement,
equity, and inclusion.
Equity and inclusion; those 3 different positions rolled into one. But he's also an engaged individual in the body of Christ, and I think that's what highlights this dynamic so much for me, is to be able to talk to a brother who's like-minded, somebody who is a fellow kingdom citizen that's making a difference both vocationally and advocationally. And the Kids Food Basket of West Michigan is a great platform for that to happen. Are there any events or anything that's coming up that fundraisers maybe, or programs?
There are plenty. I'm really not in that development space, but I'm trying. Yeah, exactly. That's what I would say. The website. Right now, this week we've got some dinners, some farm to table dinners, where we invite the community, we invite donors in to come and partake of. A chef comes in and prepares food right off of our farm for the table. So it's directly from the farm. And I didn't realize how fresh food really tastes. So because different. Oftentimes when you go and buy food, even in the stores, and vegetables in the stores, they've traveled. It depends on where that fruit or where those vegetables have come from.
Or whether it's organic or not.
Or whether they're organic or not. But when you are eating cherry tomatoes or string beans right off the farm that were just picked yesterday or the day before, that's a total different taste. And so it's my granddaughter Riley, she's on the farm, right? She's volunteering right now
today.
So she came into work with me, and she's doing some video trainings for the kids. They're planning for our Ground Up Learn Lab. They're planting stuff, and they're watering stuff, and they're growing stuff, and they're picking stuff. And she's going to pack some stuff later today. So,
and at the end of the day, somebody's going to get a meal that they can take home with them. That is, it's that ecosystem, that community taking care of community. That's ministry for me, and I want to. It sounds biblical to me.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I really didn't feel like I was by vocation. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still doing ministry. It's still a part of who I am. And
that was the first thing I noticed because it didn't change you. I've worked in the industry, of training and development, leadership development, as a professor and all these things for many, many years. But I've never separated who I am from the pulpit, who I am in a classroom, who I am in a corporate suite, with the executive leaders of a corporation, or if it was the staff of an usher board, So it's really the same thing, and the awesome responsibility that you have. Speak a little bit from your heart. We've got about 5 minutes left, but I want to talk about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about Kids Food Basket. But really, an organization is only as strong as the people who run it.
That's true.
Who serve in it, who provide the time, the energy, the resources. So everybody's important, from the volunteers to the donors to the participants, the recipients, all of that. You're somewhere in the middle pulling all that together. How does that impact you from a personal
I think that's my mission, to connect, to collaborate. I think as pastors, we do that work of inclusion a lot better than we think we do. I mean, our congregation, if it's just to be honest, a small congregation of 30 to 50 people, that's 50 personalities, that's 50 people.
And all their families.
And all their families,
that
exactly. So we've always worked in that engagement space, in that inclusion space. We've worked in that equity space of trying to be fair and make sure that everyone has what they need. So it's just a part of who I am. And I just love the beauty that you spoke on, how you've never changed of who you were to stand in those spaces. I think that's the beauty, that we get to show up as our authentic selves. Amen. And be who we are. I mean, that's who we are, and that's the attraction. That's what draws people. That builds the trust, in who we are, and that we can do the work. It builds the confidence, and makes us reliable. It makes us competent, because we're not trying to learn something. We are being something. We're being who God has made us to be. And so I try to bring that to that space of kindness, of empathy, of compassion to any of the stakeholders that I'm dealing with. If it's the schools that I'm talking to, the principals, the donors, the volunteers, or the families that we serve, to deal with them all with dignity and with respect. So,
well, it is a pleasure talking to you, and I get really excited to hear someone share how their life mission and their careers tie together. I know you're making a difference as the director there in that space, that inclusion space, that engagement space, right. That equity space, and also meeting the need. Jesus took a little boy's lunch, turned it into a massive feeding opportunity, and he fed people on multiple occasions. Yes. We just have 2 accounts of it.
Thank you.
Where thousands of people were fed in one setting. And I think that what you're doing is disciple work in helping to distribute the baskets that have been multiplied.
Yes.
So to spiritualize what it is that we've been talking about in context is that it's very biblical.
Yes.
It's a God thing, whether the organization is a God organization or not.
Right.
It's definitely part of what we've been put here to do. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do. You have any closing words you want to share with the listening audience? Any shout outs or anything that you want to close with?
Thanks for having me, number one. I want to shout out to you, man. I've always, every conversation that I have, every time we engage, I learn, I grow, I expand, and that's important for me. Relationships matter. Shout out to my lovely bride of 30 years in October. Oh my goodness. So we're celebrating 30 years.
That's officially forever, you know that. Right?
Exactly. That's officially forever. And I love that. I love that forever. So Siobhan Savage, shout out to my lovely wife who's been by my side in this journey called life, the ups and the downs. Just a shout out. I'm so thankful that I met her and we connected, and she said yes, and then we worked on what we have. And so shout out to my Great Lakes Kingdom Ministry family who helped make me who I am, and all my friends and family. It's good being here today.
Great. And all the staff and the team over there at
definitely. My KFB. Bridget Clark Whitney, we have an amazing CEO. She's an amazing person. This is her vision. This is her life work. As we celebrate 20 years as an organization, she's celebrating 20 years of leading this organization. Sweet. So her only job that she's had as an adult. So, and to that amazing LSO leadership staff at Kids Food Basket and everyone who volunteers, all of our stakeholders, we so appreciate what you do.
Great. Thank you. You've been listening to Community Voices on 91.9 FM, The People's Choice. I'm Terrence Lauchie. That's Rodney Savage. And we've had a great conversation about the Kids Food Basket of West Michigan.
You've been listening to Community Voices with your host, Terrence Lauchie. Community Voices can be heard every Friday at 12 noon. This radio roundtable features community, business, and religious leaders that discuss current events and topics that impact our urban community. If you would like to be a guest, or if you have a suggested topic, contact the station today at 616-259-7342. Until next week, let your voice be heard in the community.